Everybody can see it. So those are just a couple of house rules. And today's presentation has to do with training services. Sue Bhuyan and Joe Holtsclaw will be presenting. It will give you an idea of the services we have available in institutional planning and operation and why training is so critical. Sue joined Rutgers School of Social Work in January 2014 as an instructional designer. She later moved into learning technologies. She has extensive experience in design, development, and training delivery. Sue began her career in education as an instructor of math and economics, and that led to training and instructional design positions in the corporate sector. She implemented training programs for the pharmaceutical industry in the area of global research and development systems. Sue's corporate experience also included facilitation of the trainer sessions for local and regional trainers. In our division, she will concentrate on properly implementing training for our work management systems, and she is a division resource to roll out software programs and any programs that require professional instruction. Sue will speak for about 15 minutes, and then you will hear from Joe, who is currently the director of our IWMS administration. He served for many years in a variety of positions within ip&o. His areas of responsibility include overseeing the composition and practical use of the integrated work management system, training services, asset management, and facilities condition analysis. He has contributed to publications on preventive maintenance and work control management and has been a conference presenter regarding his experience directing the facilities condition assessment project. At present, Joe is guiding the development and implementation of the training program for the AIM Fire O&M app, some of you are already familiar with that, which will allow work orders to be sent to mechanics in the field via mobile devices. In addition, he is serving as the chair of 3 committees formed to analyze and refresh the AIM system as recommended in an executive level report from the Internal Audit and Advisory Services. And with that, I'll turn it over to Sue.
Okay. Thank you, Liz.
You're welcome.
And thanks everyone for coming. Good morning and welcome. So as Liz mentioned, I'm going to speak a little bit about the training services in strategic services, which is part of ip&o. I wanted to mention a couple things. So at your seats you have a questionnaire asking you a few questions about training services and what you'd like to see. So we do appreciate your feedback, and we'd like to know, what you'd like to see that we aren't offering, or any comments about what we already are offering. For those of you watching through Facebook, there is a link to also take the same questionnaire, so please feel free to submit your information as well. Okay. So before we get started, I just wanted to ask you guys for a little bit of input. So when you hear the word training or think of training services, what are maybe 1 or 2 words that come to mind? What else pops in your mind when you think about training? We'll take just a few to get started. Don't be shy, or you can just shout it out. You don't have to raise your hand. What are some words about training that come to mind?
Procedure.
Procedures, okay.
Improving.
Sorry?
Improving.
Improving, okay. What else?
Methodology.
Methodology. Anybody else?
Structure.
Structure, okay. Okay, so some of those words will come up, and we also have probably some new terminology that you might not have heard about, but we'll use that as we go along. So again, my name is Sue, and as Liz said, I've been with Strategic Services since November, and I'll tell you a little bit about our training services. So first of all, we have a set of goals. One is the acceptance and ease of use for any ip&o system. More specifically, the integrated work management systems, IWMS, under Joe, who will speak to you in a little while. Standardized learning methods and materials. So one of the words mentioned was methodologies, right? So how do we document those? How do we get them on paper properly and in the classroom? Ample realistic training case scenarios to reinforce concepts, processes, and procedures. A couple other words that were mentioned, right? So The case scenarios are really those things that I look to the experts in the field who know the content the best to say, this is a typical scenario that an end user would encounter. Again, how do we document those? How do we get those out to people in a fashion that they're going to look at them? Is it paper? Is it online? Is it in the training room? How do we get that information out? But the scenarios are most important because we want it to be as realistic as possible. Appropriate training material and modalities. So what form does the material take? What form does the actual training take? One of those is user manuals. Okay, getting the material together. Again, the processes and procedures need to be documented accurately so that when somebody picks it up as a reference guide, that it is an accurate portrayal of the process that you go to accomplish whatever goal that might be. Instructor-led training. This is in the training room where you're at a station and somebody is delivering the material. That's all that means, ILT. System simulations and simulation libraries. If you're not familiar with the word simulation, it's basically using a software that records the clicks you would do in the actual system. And then in the training room, we use that recording to walk somebody through the system without actually being in the system. One of the things that this helps with is because a lot of the systems, if I have 20 people in the room, I can't have all 20 people working on the same work order or the same record, right? But with a simulation, I can accomplish that. Web-based training. This is online training, right? So self-paced, already out there, available 24/7. You've taken many of these, in other divisions of Rutgers. You need to take, a lot of HR training every year. Everybody has to update certain things. Computer-based activities, they can be used in conjunction with any of the others above. You can have computer-based activities with ILT. You can have computer-based with WBTs. So these can be used together as well. When things are used together, we just simply call that blended learning because it's more than one form of getting the information out to you. Okay. So I wanted to touch a little bit on instructional design. So this might be new terminology to you and it might not be, but I wanted to put up just a couple definitions of what instructional design is. So the first definition is the process of combining information into a logical sequence or flow for an engaging learning experience. So we've all been to trainings where you might be bored to death and you don't really get a lot out of it. So that's why I talk about an engaging learning experience. So those activities and things like that, the scenarios, that makes it more meaningful to the end user or the participant in the room so that you take away more. And it sticks better when somebody asks you a question about it or you have to go back and teach your colleague how to do it. Okay, those experiences are what's going to make it more meaningful. The other definition is pretty similar, but it's one I like as well, the practice of creating instructional experiences which make the acquisition of knowledge more efficient, effective, and appealing. Again, playing on that where it's an experience to you instead of maybe not picking up so much from a training session. Right. So in instructional design, there is a structure. So one of the most widely accepted structures that are used or model that is used is called the ADDIE model, ADDIE, and we'll go through that in a second. It's one of the most traditional approaches. It's very flexible because you can basically use the steps that you need and use the pieces of the steps that you need to accomplish your goal. So Liz mentioned the FIRE O&M application, and this is the first project that I've worked on here in ip&o, and it's basically moving from paper work orders to paperless work orders. So it's a mobile application through AIM so that people in the field can get their work orders electronically on the iPad instead of paper. So it's a move toward the paperless work orders. So to start out with, A stands for the analysis portion. So analysis consists of what is the underlying need? Why did somebody come to us and say we need training? What's the purpose, right? So for instance, with the Fire O&M app, it is to go paperless with work orders. That's the underlying need. Then you look at what are the requirements? What are the tasks we're going to take to get there? Who are the participants? What's the target audience? All these questions come about in the analysis phase. Then we move on to design. In design, we talk about what are the learning objectives? What are people going to walk away with when they attend this particular training or take this training online or pick up this documentation that we put together? What is the end goal? Then we talk about what delivery format. So all those different formats I mentioned earlier, again, you can combine those. It doesn't have to only be instructor-led or only be web-based. You can make a combination. Those are things that are decided in the design phase. Okay. Then we move on to development. Excuse me. And that means exactly what it says. You just develop the materials. You write the manuals. You create the web-based training. You put together the documents that are needed. And then you go through with the people that are involved on the project team with a review, and then you improve the materials because you get feedback from anybody that's involved in the project. Then implementation. Implementation is the actual how it's delivered from the trainers to the end users. So this is what people typically think about when you talk about training, is the actual sit in a room and get information transferred or go online and take the web-based training. That transfer of information, that's the implementation phase. Okay? Often there's a pilot where we take a small group of people and kind of test out the materials, and that's in the implementation phase as well. And then finally, the E stands for evaluate. So without evaluation, we won't really know if we're doing a good job or not, if we got the correct information out to people or not. So evaluation helps us take a step back and say, how was it received? Did we miss any parts? Do we need to improve it for next time? Things like that. Without evaluation, there's no improvement. So that step is very crucial. Okay? So when we create training, when we have a training project, we don't do it alone. Nobody can do it alone. So it really takes a team. And so I wanted to go through the people that contribute when there is a training project. So first and foremost, there has to be a sponsor. There has to be somebody saying, this is the training, this is why we're doing the training. We need an executive sponsor. So I'm going to parallel a lot of this to the Fire O&M project that we're working on. So Ghislaine is the executive sponsor for that training, for the Fire app training. Then we have a training team. The training team, since this is under the IWMS administration, would start with Joe as the director, and then we'd have trainers and instructional designers, people writing the material, people delivering the material. That would be the training team. Then we need to take a look at representation across ip&o or those that are involved with the project more closely. And they really, stakeholders, partner with the training team. So they're a very important part of the contribution because they partner with the team. They either have some impact on the project or are impacted by what the project is going to bring. So, for instance, the paperless work orders, who are the people who are going to be impacted by that, right? And they're definitely informed of any key decisions. They're not involved in so much the day-to-day work on the project, but they're definitely kept informed of decisions that are made. And then we have our group of subject matter experts, or abbreviated, we just call them SMEs, okay? These are the people who hold all the knowledge about whatever subject we're training on. So for the Fire O&M app, it's people who are in the field, who are receiving work orders, who are issuing work orders, who are in the system day to day and know the content very well. Okay, and they are very involved in the development of training. They give the trainer and the instructional designer They give them information on content. They give them information on process. They give information on terminology. All these things that maybe the instructional designer doesn't have exposure to every day, but needs to take that information and turn it into training material. Okay, so that transfer of knowledge is between the subject matter expert and instructional designers and trainers. And they also review anything that is developed to again, make sure that it is accurate. We also couldn't do this without IT support and administrative support. IT support helps us with any technical issues, with any knowing about any upgrades to the system, knowing about any downtime to the system, so that on a day of training, it's not a downtime where all of a sudden we get in the training room and things don't work. IT support would keep us abreast of those developments. And also, if anything we're doing has upstream or downstream effects to any other groups, that would also come through IT. Administrative support helps us with communication, documentation, setting up meetings, which is a huge contribution as well, because again, we couldn't do it without any one of these pieces to develop a project. And finally, I wanted to touch a little bit on what's called a learning management system. So this is something we're also looking into to adopt within strategic services. A learning management system would help us, once we have all these either instructor-led courses or web-based training or any documentation, it helps us manage all of that and have a place to store it. It also helps a lot with enrollment and registration. So again, I mentioned that you've definitely taken some web-based training within Rutgers. And every time you log into a new system of classes or things like that, and they ask you for your user ID and a password, that's actually a learning management system behind the scenes. You're registering, and they're putting you in the learning management system so that you have access to the information. You have access to the web-based training. You have access to documentation. Okay? And then a learning management system would also help us with reporting. So maybe at the end of the year or during performance review, your manager or supervisor says, well, what did you do by way of, kind of self-improvement and things this year? You'd be able to go in and say, I took all these classes, right? So you can do reporting on it as well. Okay? And then the registration. I just wanted to add about the registration. So, if we are offering some instructor-led sessions, you would be able to register for those, and if something happens, you need to change sessions. All of that is kind of, self-motivated, and you can go in there and make changes. So we're exploring different possibilities for an LMS, but definitely more to come with that within training services in ip&o. Okay. So that was all I had, and I'm going to turn it over to Joe, and he's going to talk a little bit about the certification program. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot. I just had a slide with my information up there for you.
I'll give you guys a second to get information down. I'm pretty much, where we're at. We're on the 3rd floor west here at 33 Knightsbridge.
Yep.
And our email addresses and all are in the system. Our phone numbers are in the system. So, as you can see, there is a lot to consider when putting together a training program. And Sue brings a very quiet sensibility and to the a professional edge, if you will, to the whole process. I'm very pleased that she's a part of our team. Again, a lot to put together. So we say, how do we track that effort? How do we substantiate that effort? How do we create a framework to build on? And we need a certification program. We need a way to go ahead and say, Sort of like college, right? You go to college and you go in, first year student, sophomore, junior, senior. You take your intro courses, your 101 courses, then you get to your 200 level, 300 level, so on and so forth. Some of you go on to get master's degrees, PhDs, whatever. But there's a method to that, and there's levels of achievement that you have to attain. So what we want to do here is we want to formalize that training. We've never had that before. We've never had a training program that was formalized that we could look at and had some structure to it. Okay? So again, we want to take a structured approach to this. We want to make sure that we are giving some thought to the entire process and not treating it, treating it as a secondary issue, because it is key to how we perform our jobs. We also want to centralize the system. All too often, I think it's been fragmented, the way we've approached training, the way we've looked at training. This will centralize the system on every campus, and just, I think, give us a better idea of what we need to do. And then, of course, it supports strategic reporting, and I can't stress that enough, because how many times have we all been in our jobs and someone says, what deferred maintenance projects do we have, or what preventive maintenance things do we have to do? And we're scrambling. We're looking at spreadsheets that one colleague has, and then we're looking at things that are on a separate drive. So what we want to do is we want to support strategic reporting by keeping this program in a central location, by formalizing it, by structuring it. And I'll be getting to that in a little bit about how that can help us down the line. So how does it work? Well, first thing we need to do is we need to document everyone's workflows. We need to take a look. How do you do your job? Who touches what? When, where, why? Then we need to establish, as I said, training levels and course content. And again, it's setting up those 101 courses and those higher level courses in order to make your training meaningful. It's all going to be position appropriate and role based. We're not going to have someone who only needs to know how to create a work order and look at the space management system. We're not going to have them going in and learning something that is above their position, so to speak. Not to say that they're not capable, but we want to make sure that we're appropriate and role-based with what we're doing. Each training session will have a practical review. We want to know how you did. Did you get something out of the course? I'll get to it in a later slide, but it does build confidence for both the staff member and for the supervisor, knowing that that individual has passed the course and could manage what they need to in their job. And then, of course, we're going to provide certification with this. And again, that ties into how well you've learned the material. And again, with the confidence level on both ends. So, what does it provide? Well, it's going to provide a workforce very confident in their abilities. We formalize this, and you can be confident. I can go out there, I've been through this training course, I paid attention in class, I passed the practical review, been certified, I know what to do out here. Sort of like going out and getting a professional license. If you're a tradesperson, it says something and means something. Secondly, we want all tasks to be managed via the IWMS. And I know this is a little out there with talking about a training program and talking about all tasks being managed there. But part of what we're going to do when we take a look at training you on the various modules is we want you to handle all of your work within those modules or in a system that's connected to those modules. We want to have consistent navigation and use of the IWMS. Again, it's going to provide everyone with one way of doing this. We're not going to make this up as we go along. We want you to be trained in the proper use of the system. We want you to consistently navigate that. We also want you to set up your work desks so that an area manager in Newark has his work desk or his or her work desk set up the same way as a work desk for an area manager in New Brunswick. We want accurate and reliable reporting capabilities. And it goes back to what I said about people keeping things on separate spreadsheets or in a separate drive. We want everything into the system. Again, part of the training will show you how to go ahead and do that and connect things into work orders via related documents. Being able to connect other people via phases on the work orders. And then finally, we want to have trust in that IWMS as a single source of information. Okay? We want to be able to rely on that day in, day out. That's where we're going to go. Work and get our information from and share information. So, what's the training manager's responsibilities here? As Sue told you and outlined, she's going to coordinate all of the IWMS training efforts. Sue is not only our trainer, but she's our instructional designer. So she's going to design, develop, and deliver training materials. And in a lot of instances, and I have to give Sue, again, credit for this, a lot of instances, they're separate. Training manager is going to do training and training only, and an instructional designer is going to put together everything. Sue is doing both of those things. And then finally, Sue's going to do another thing. She's going to establish an IWMS training help desk so that you're not alone out there. You have a question, you can call Sue or write to Sue and get an answer and solve your issue, whatever that is. Part of that help desk will be maintaining a library, a video library of simulations or training sessions that have been instructor-led that have been videotaped. So there's going to be a lot of resources there when we talk about a help desk and a lot of things that you could benefit from. So I said Sue is developing course content. So it's going to be developed in association with all of the workflow units. We're not going to be making this up. We're going to make sure that everyone has input on this. We want to know what those tasks are that you need to do out there. We want to know what your workflow is in order to develop the courses that we need to teach. Oh, sorry. I got a little bit ahead of myself here. You like that animation? The transition. Okay. We want to have no impact to other units. Okay. We don't want to step on anyone else's toes here. We want to make sure we're not duplicating an effort, and that we're not doing something that we want the appropriate area to be handling particular things. Okay. Let's put it to you that way. We want to be concise and uniform. We want to be easy to understand and use, and we want to be and have a consistent look and format. Again, it's all about just being able to push this across the entire division and being able to talk to people in Newark, Camden, New Brunswick, all the same. There's my snowstorm. It's up to training levels. So training levels are pretty simple. We have a basic level of training, and this is where the majority of people are going to receive their training. Be work order training and how to use the space management system. So how to get a work order, how to create a work order, go ahead and how to look up building plans, floor plans so you know where you're going. And this is particularly important for mechanics in the field as new buildings are brought online to get familiar with that, but it's going to be there as, again, space management is there as a resource. So we teach you how to use that in your particular role. Then we get up to intermediate level, which is going to be something along the lines of knowing how to use, and by the way, everyone will be going through basic level training. as a refresher or as a way to learn this new, how to create work orders. So on the intermediate level, what we're looking at here is we're looking at preventive maintenance, we're looking at asset management. So there's going to be just a few individuals that are involved with that and learning how to use those systems, energy management, the capital project module, so on and so forth. And then we're going to have the advanced level, which is basically our super users. It's going to be very few. It's just a handful of people. Myself, it'll be Sue, Ed Fabula, Chris Warren, people like that, the IT guys. Mark Rom will be at the advanced level. And we're also going to teach new features and specialized classes. And new features are there. We're going to upgrade AIM, the AIM system, to 9.2.5. It's an upgrade from 8.6. So there are some new features there, so we'll be able to train you on those. And then there are those specialized classes, those one-off classes that we'll need to teach along the way as they come up. And then finally, providing refresher training to everyone. We're not going to just train you once and leave you there. We will have a cycle of refresher courses that will come up, and as well as the video library that you can refer to and go back and refer to, like I said, refer to and get refreshed on. So, as I mentioned, a practical review. It's going to be included at all levels. It's a method to assess the progress, your progress. The end users, ensure that the end users can meet their responsibilities with success. And again, it's a way for you to feel confident that you've been trained, you know what to do, and you can go out there and do your job. It builds the confidence for your supervisor as well, in going out there, your supervisor knowing that. Okay, certification. That's going to be at all levels. We're going to give you a certification, basic, intermediate, advanced levels. Okay, it's going to be certification. It verifies your achievement, verifies that you're at that particular level. Want to demonstrate end user capabilities in there, that's what it's going to do. It's going to allow everyone to see that you're capable of handling whatever we've trained you on. It builds your confidence again, and once again, it formalizes the program. And you get that stamp of approval, you're certified. So the training help desk that we talked about, if you have your questions, issues that come up, it's going to be division-wide. We want to resolve user problems. We want to provide customized support to you. We do have a resource account for that. It's at IWMS help at ipo.rutgers.edu. So, any questions at all? It's active now. If you have any questions, even now, just send them in to that. It's monitored, and we'll get back to you with our responses. So that's about it for the training certification program. There's my information, but once again, we're on the third floor here, third floor west, 33 Knightsbridge. And I think we'll be open to some questions.
Yes, any questions, especially as it pertains to your specific groups. Feel free to ask questions. Jeff?
Sure, and you mentioned earlier that you were responsible for training in IPO systems. Mm-hmm. Will you be responsible for any other trainings outside of IPO systems? So to give you an example, if I needed a specialized training for maybe a subject matter expert outside of the university, mm-hmm. would you oversee that sort of training that would bring that person or persons in to train my group, or are you just strictly IPO systems?
Well, I think on those types of situations, you can definitely bring the request to us, and then, I could discuss it with Joe and Ghislaine, and we could see where that fits in. I think you're talking about like expertise outside of the group that maybe to come in and talk or give some
talks or some sort of training. Yes,
Yeah. So Joe, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I believe we're open to that as well, so.
Yeah, we are open to that. Just want to, this is a new initiative, and we are going to be open to training in a variety of ways, not only for IWMS, but we'll be looking at providing, bringing in some outside sources to provide the training on a variety of different things. So, yeah. So to answer the question, yeah, we'll consider everything. Whether we train on everything remains to be seen, but we'll certainly consider that.
So, if we have training requests, we come to you first, and then you tell us whether or not we go to HR for their training programs?
You could. That might be a good place to start, and then we could point you in the right direction there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Jeff, if you have something in mind right now, please put on the questionnaire, and we can talk about it. Or if that was just general, but definitely if you have something specific, we can, That's why we'd like your feedback on the questionnaire. So please remember to fill that out too.
Now, do you have a schedule of the training you will be offering? Like, are you going to be offering certain classes at certain times, or do you have your schedule already set up of the training that you're going to be offering, like for our systems, that we can share? Or you haven't developed the schedule yet?
Right. Well, so we're starting with the fire O&M application, and then we'll start building from there. But as Joe mentioned with the certification program, if there's certain things for the basic level that, we have enough demand, let's say, to offer once a quarter or things like that, that are some of the, let's say, creating a work order is one of our courses, right? If we find that needs to be offered once a quarter and we get enough people to attend those classes, then we would do something like that, have a regular schedule. Other things like, Joe said specialized classes or things like that, it would kind of be decided as we go, right? And then once we get over the fire or O&M training, and then see, after the initial go live, if there's a need for refresher courses or additional courses as people come in, or if it makes sense to turn that into a web-based training so that at any point in time, let's say you hire a new person and they need to take it, it's available 24/7, and you don't need to rely on setting up a formal classroom course. So,
the rollout of the Fire app is extremely important. That's something that I know operations put a priority on. So that's going to be our first step in getting that out. And there's a lot that goes on with that training, a lot how we have to roll it out to different campuses. So I know we have a plan there on rolling it out. Yes, question?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. After that, though, I think the first step is going to be, and the concentration is going to be on the basic training level and getting work order training for a lot of people here. I know that utilities needs work order training. I know that RBHS needs some work order training as we go along. So just getting that basic program set up is going to be the very, very next step that we embark on.
The fire O&M, is that going to be strictly fire and life safety systems as far as work order management is concerned, or is that just the name that you gave it?
That's just the name. So the company AssetWorks came up with a clever. So they have 3 products. They have AIM, they have Ready, and they have Fire.
Okay.
So this is just their brand.
I come from a fire background.
So you get Ready.
So.
It's just Ready, AIM, Fire.
Right.
That's just what they came up with
Gotcha.
to market themselves. So that's all that means.
and I
okay?
think the F and the R and the E stand for some. I don't know
Yeah.
what they specifically, but
Yeah.
it's the name from AssetWorks. So
All right.
It's the product we
Yeah.
use and what they call it. So
Yeah.
that's what it is. But so there's a variety of mobile solutions that they have. O&M is one of them that in particular deals with work orders. And then you have an asset management mobile solution. You also have a project mobile solution. So there's different products there that they have, and you can buy the license for. Yep. Yes.
Now, I know you've folded certain people from the Fire app, but there may be some benefits for like my department to utilize that with an expansion package. Someone's told me about a little bit about
Right, so with the O&M app, that's strictly for managing work orders. So if you have staff that's going to be using the work order system, then yes, you should go ahead and let me know who those staff are so that we can get them into the training program.
No, but what I'm trying to say is, I don't know that much about the Fire app to be able to, someone's telling me that you could work with us in order to have building plans on there. I'm not sure whether or not it does. But we would like to be able to take our new buildings and put it on this software that you have, get to the university, when you have the work orders and you're going to be tagging back to the actual building.
Right, so that would be more of the project, the fire project mobile solution. So absolutely, but to find out more information, we have two components to our IWMS right now. Okay, we use Archibus for space management, and we use the AssetWorks AIM system for everything else right now. So simply by going on to the AssetWorks website, you can find out more about the products. But that's something that, knowing now that you have an interest in that, something that I think we need to consider, pushing out it to people and letting them know what the product can or can't do. So, good point.
And I think if you have questions immediately, we could meet with you separately and kind of go over, what needs it does fulfill, that particular application, and see if it matches up.
Right, and the same thing.
You don't want to have several different software out there that you have to maintain and pay and upkeep, whatever. So if we can benefit by expanding a certain, software, we're willing to do that.
Right.
Right, and what we're looking for here too, in the more strategic sense here, what we're looking for is best of breed in any of our systems. Okay, so we're looking for, the best of breed. And this is how Archibus came in to being, because they handle space very, very well. I think that's the one software that really, that's what they do best, is handle space. So there might be other software out there that we're looking at. As a matter of fact, we're putting out an RFP for project management software, and looking at that and seeing if we can bring that in and incorporate that into the integrated work management system. And remember, it's a single platform, but it consists of a few different types of software, and you blend that all together and you make it work for us here. We're going to make that work for us. And anything else that we get needs to be able to be integrated into that system. It needs to make those connections. Both, sometimes it's a one-way connection and sometimes it's a two-way connection on those things. So again, we're going to take a look at everything and see what's going to work best for us here. Any other questions?
Did we have any online?
Anything coming from the online audience? No? Okay. All right. So I'd like to thank you all for being here. Hope we provided you with information you could use. And like I said, we're available, so contact us if you have any questions or comments. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is basically not playing at all. Once you get it moving, it moves smoothly, but if it's coming from a point of rest, you have to like jerk it. Yeah.
Oh, yes, thank you so much.
So what do you want us to do?
I talked to Matt Wolf on Friday. Now, Matt said that he gave you guys an IPO. So I said I was going to talk to you today, and I said, I figured I'd see you today, and I said, I'll try. Because that's what he said. So I said, you know what, Matt, I'm going to say that, but I'm going to step back. Because he was adamant that, he said, well, Jeff, what I'm trying to find out is I gave him an IPO. He said that Chuck or Joe has some sort of template or something that they made. And I was like, Matt, if they're already working on it, I'm gonna step back, but you know, I said, I'll talk to Dave. I said, we work close. I said, if we need to step back, I said, she'll let me know. He says, yeah, at this point, Jeff, he says, because I still want to know where's my money at. And I said, well, I got nothing.